Hey, today I have a Harley Benton RB612 Classic Series, which is basically like a Rickenbacker copy, but unlike a Rickenbacker, the Harley Benton has regular 12-string setup. And I'm going to show you today in this video how to change this to have more of the Rickenbacker sound. And it's actually really easy. I think the people at Harley Benton probably designed this guitar to where it could be set up to be more like a Rickenbacker if you wanted it to be. Whereas if they probably did it like a Rick, they might have gotten sued for copyright infringement or breaking some sort of peace treaty with the third world country. But it's pretty simple. If you look at it, you have this cover right here that's held on by two little screws. Those screws come off and this cover pops right off. And then the saddles, the way the saddles are designed is they can easily be unscrewed. There's a little bolt on one side, and I'll try to take a picture and insert it, and a little screw on the other, and all you have to do is flip the saddle around and screw it back in. And so I think it's going to be a really easy setup. But I'll get some pictures or some video and show you here real close. Okay, so here's what we've got. You've got Phillips. Let me find something to point with. I got these here. You basically have a Phillips head right here, and that Phillips head is holding the saddle in place. This thing's held on by this screw right here, and there's one over on this side, so this whole thing will pop off. You don't even have to take the saddle off. You don't even have to take off all the strings, because this set of strings, they're exactly the same gauge. This set of strings are the same gauge, and on this one you probably will want to flip it, although you wouldn't have to get the same thing that you get from a Rickenbacker. I'm camping, that's why there's all this noise out here today. But anyway, we're gonna flip. I'm gonna go ahead and flip this one, this one, this one, and this one, and when I get this piece off, I'll let you see what the saddle looks like. This is a Phillips head, so all you need is a Phillips to get it taken apart. So this piece came off pretty simply, as you can say. And then we have the two little screws. So there's little, tiny little Phillips screws. They go right there. Let's see here. Now, let me get you a close-up of the saddles. There we go. Okay, so here. There we go. These are the saddles, okay? So see how it's held on by this Phillips bolt here, and it comes back and it's into a little nut right here on this side. All I have to do is take that and then flip this around, and it should be fine. Now, it's not exactly angled, so somebody out there might say, yeah, but they're not angled the right direction. One of the things we could do is we could move these saddles down to here. My only problem, oh, well, that's interesting. Okay, these are actually cut to be the same size as this, so you could easily do that. You could just move these saddles down to here, and if you wanted to go that far. I'm just going to flip them. I don't think I need to actually move them, and with the intonation, I don't think flipping them is going to screw up the intonation that bad, because the angle that this is, I still have that much room to intonate if I have to go that way when it's all said and done. So I'm going to flip these after I take the strings off, and we'll be right back. Alright, I want to show you something. Right here, I think the people at Harley Benton expected people to flip the string order because they have, I was going to buy a new nut for this, but they have the thin string cut to the exact same width as the thick string. So they're probably expecting people to be able to flip these either direction. Now when you look down here, you can see that this one is cut higher than that one, and that's why that has to be flipped. But other than that, this is going to be really easy to set it up like a rig. The other thing I noticed is they wound a lot of string onto these, probably expecting somebody to flip them. And the other thing you might want to know is if you have one of these, Harley Benton put plastic on everything. So I'm going to take the plastic off of this truss rod cover too. They had plastic on the pick guard, and on even the inside of the humbuckers has plastic that's unusual, but I'm not sure how to. I'd have to take the whole humbucker apart to get that plastic off, so I'm just going to leave it. But also the way these are strung is pretty easy. They just fit up in there. So remember, standard 12 string is the thin string first and then the thick string, but on a Rickenbacker it's the thick string and then the thin string. So, well, you know what, these are cut thin thick. I probably will need to put a new nut on this at some point, but I'm just going to string it up today. I've got a nut coming in the mail that I'll probably put on it later on down the road, but for now this is what we got to work with. Oh, it's so satisfying taking this crap off. There it is. The nut actually will be pretty easy to replace. All you got to do is you can heat it up with a hairdryer and then just give it a little whack with like the end of a screwdriver or something, and it'll knock that right off, and then carve the other nut. I'm going to make it out of bone and it's going to sit right there, and I'm going to recut the string slots. I'll probably use this as a template so I know where the strings are supposed to go, but then I'm going to file them with different files to get that nut. I don't know if you're actually going to get to see that in this video or not, because I don't have the nut in the mail yet, and I'm 4 hours from my house, so probably not going to happen today, but the rest of this is going to. Okay. So I can't do this with the camera on, but I had to loosen up. But really, you just grab this and give it a couple. I had to hold this in with the Phillips, but you give that a couple twists, and then this pops right off. And well, it will pop off when I'm not on the camera, but that's how you get that off. I want you to see that it's a nut with a little washer that's on the end of that, okay? And then this threads off, flip it and thread it back on, and then you're good. I'll show you when I'm done.
And you just flip it that way.
And it's going to go back like that. The bolt will come back through, and then it just threads in. So I'll show you that one. Alright, so here it is threaded on, and you just work it through the hole in the back, just like that. And it's good. Now we got to put the nut and the washer on it, but that's how you do it. And you're going to do that for this one, you're going to do it for this one, and this one. And when it's done, if you want to, put a new nut on, string it up, and it's going to have that Rick kind of wire stringing setup. So this is thick, thin, and I'm just flipping these, you know, and you just, once this is in place, you could just kind of hold it, unscrew this bolt, and once you get it unscrewed, then you just flip. You just flip it around like that, put the bolt back in, and then screw it back in. Well, sometimes I need to hold it with these. My fingers are a little too big for it. But I'm trying to basically remember where the top lined up, so that way I don't have a whole lot of intonation to do when it's all said and done. If you find out where it's supposed to line up, and then do it that way. There we go. Sometimes you got to go all the way to the back. This one's hard because this is kind of in the way, and that one's kind of in the way. The other two were a little bit easier because they were out of the way. Here, let's do it this way. Let's slip it in behind here. There we go, that's easier. Alright, now I've got it on. And you just work that through. And I remembered that this was lower, that was a little bit higher, and this one was higher still. That should get me close enough to when I go to do the intonation, I'm not really fumbling around trying to find where I want to be. And then the other thing about this that's kind of interesting is these nuts that are here actually lock the intonation in, so you don't have to worry about it coming unintonated. But that's pretty close to where I had it before, so now I can put the nut back on. And with this one done, I only have the one more to do, and then the last two you don't really need to do because they're not reversed on a Rickenbacker. So you don't have to mess with those too much. This one, the nut, is a little tricky to get on because you'll screw up the intonation if you use the screwdriver to get this in. So you kind of have to do the nut this way. There we go. And you just finger tighten it like that. And then what I'm doing is I'm holding the screw here, and then I just take my pliers and tighten that up. That's it. That's done. And that's pretty much where it needs to be. Now I just have this last one to do, and then this will be set up just like a Rick. And now if you really want to get crazy, you can add a blender knob right here, the little small one like a Rick, and down here you can add another jack, and then a Harley Benton will basically be an exact, or not exact, but it'll be basically a Rickenbacker clone just by doing these few modifications. And of course, I'm sure Harley Benton can't endorse doing this kind of work on one of their guitars because it's basically copying a Rick too much. Now, one of the things I want you to see is that this saddle and that saddle are pretty close, so when I put it back on, I got to make those saddles match. What do you need? I will admit I was aggravated because it took forever for this guitar to get to me. But Harley Benton was very kind, or Tommen, I forget what the name of the company is. They did a really good job at intonating this. So I am trying to copy their intonation as much as possible with this, and then I'll fine-tune the intonation. But what's interesting about this guitar, if I haven't mentioned it already, is these nuts have to come off in order to intonate this thing. So just keep that in mind if you're working on it. Actually, now the last thing we got to do other than stringing it up is we have to put this back on and put these little screws back in. So I'm going to string it and then put everything back. Okay, now we're see how this is set up. So we got the thick string here and the thin string there, and we get these all tightened down. Now we've got it set up the way Rick is. But notice this string is higher than this string. So at some point when I get the new nut, and I do have a file, I could actually file this one to match. I don't think I'm going to, since I'm going to replace the nut anyway, but it'll level out because this slot won't be as deep as that slot. I guess I was off when I thought that it was about the same. But you can see down here on this end how they sit into the saddle just perfectly, and there they are. So that's the first roast. I also wanted to talk about this for just a second. The way this works, it really doesn't matter which is on top or which is on bottom when they slip in. I think it's going to be fine. The way they had it originally is the thick string locks the thin string in, I think, but it really doesn't matter. There it is. All the jingle you could need for the Birds, Tom Petty, or about anybody else. God bless you. Have a great day. We'll see you in the next video. Hey, and check out the Fantastic Flying Frogs. You'll love us. We'll be your new favorite band. Alright, so this is the second video on how to make your Harley Benton 12-string guitar sound more like a Rickenbacker. And I'm trying to get this to focus. I'm sorry. Oh, there we go. This is the nut. It's not a bone nut that comes on the Harley Benton. It's a plastic nut. And but the string gauges, when I changed it out, they don't really line up. So you can see that the thicker strings are now higher than the thinner string. I think I can get it better. I'm doing this with my phone, so it's a little bit different than being able to focus with a regular camera. But anyway, I think you get the idea. But what I'm going to be using is a bone blank. So you can get these off eBay fairly inexpensively. I think I paid $7 and I got 3 of these. I believe they're buffalo bone, water buffalo bone. And what I'm going to do, because this is a black nut, I'm going to have to dye this black. So in this video, this is what I'm going to teach you. I'm going to teach you how to carve a saddle like this to where, I'm not a saddle, a nut, so that way it will work as a nut. I'm going to teach you how to file in the fret, the slots, so that way this will have the correct slot spacing. And then I'm going to teach you how to dye this so that it's black, so that it matches here. And when this whole thing is finished, then what we're going to have is a Harley Benton that's set up exactly the way that a Rickenbacker would be set up. and we can then have basically the Rickenbacker sound on a Harley Benton instrument. So stay tuned. Now notice I didn't take the strings all the way off to work on the nut. I'm just taking the strings to the side, and that gives me plenty of room to get to this nut. Now, you'll notice that the binding is white. You probably could go ahead and leave the nut white if you wanted to, and it probably would look okay, because that white, if you aged it a little bit, or even if you didn't, as it aged, it probably would match up really nicely to the binding. I'm not really sure, now that I'm looking at this, what would be the best, if a white nut would be good, or if I should dye it black. I don't know, I'll have to think about it. But here's the next step. The next step is, once we get this off, we have to draw this profile onto this piece of blank bone so that it matches, and then we'll have to sand that down with the sander. And then that will give us the blank that we need to get started with. So the next step is, I'm going to take these screws off, take their screws out, and then I'm going to take this plate off, and then I'm going to tap this and pop that off. But I'm going to have to do that off the camera because I can't hold the camera and do that at the same time. Now I'm going to give this a little gentle nudge, and there it went. I didn't have to do a whole lot to get it to pop off, and usually you don't. Usually these things, they're only just stuck on with a little tiny bit of glue. Clean that up a little bit with a file, and if I need to. And there it is. So this nut, we're going to, I'll save this, you know, in case I need it for some other project. But basically what we're doing is we're inverting, okay, that's how I want to film this. We're inverting all these file marks, okay? So where it's thin, thick, we're going to make it thick, thin. And it'll just be the opposite of what this is. So we're going to transfer all of these markings onto our bone nut, and we'll just do it in the opposite way. So I'm going to do that with a pencil, and then I'll show you what I've done. Okay, so now I have this marked out, and hopefully you can see I've drawn the shape of this piece on here. I've also drawn the shape of the front of it here, and over here is where it's going to get cut off. And then once I've sanded this shape out and I've got this shaped out, then I can go and I can make the markings for all of these. But I'm not doing that today. I'm going to have to do that tomorrow. It's too late tonight right now to finish that up, but I will get this finished up tomorrow. You'll be able to see it. So basically, this is what it looks like if I leave it white. And it actually looks pretty good. White. I don't know. I'm thinking about it. I was going to dye it, but I kind of like it white. So I'm going to leave it white. And I'm going to put a little bit of glue on. I roughed up this side and this side a little bit with some sandpaper. And I'm going to glue it in. And then that'll be it. There it is. All finished. Now I just got to put that back on and I'll be done. Alright, so it's completely finished. This is, like I said, this is a Rickenbacker, no, it's a RB612 Classic Series by Harley Benton. And I've reworked the nut and the bridge saddles so that way it can play like a Rickenbacker 360-12. See if we have that Rick sound. Might help if I was actually tuned up. You know, it's interesting. I've only played on a classic Rick one other time, and that was a 1963, no, I think it was a 62 Rickenbacker that a friend of mine had bought in 63, and I don't really remember it other than the strings seemed a little heavier than what I liked on it. This plays just like a 6-string. I mean, when you flip the strings around, it really feels a lot easier than playing it on a regular 12-string. I don't know why. I don't know if Rickenbacker owns a patent on the way that they do their stringing or not, but if they don't, I would say more guitar companies really should try this out because this feels way better. I was going to dye the nut, but I decided not to because I actually like the nut. How it, once it yellows up, it's going to match the binding on the neck, and I think it'll look really good. And I can always go back later and dye it if I want. And it should get a little bit brighter as the glue sets. I only have just a little bit of glue on there, but it's not quite set yet, so. But that's it, man. That's how you can take your Harley Benton and turn it into being a clone of a Rickenbacker and get all that beautiful jangle if you want to. Now, if you wanted to, like I said in the previous video, you could always add another one of these jacks right here and put in a blender knob right there just like a regular Rick has, but I feel like that's needless nowadays. You can get a guitar pedal that'll split and let you do that. In fact, I have one right here have the Zoom multi-stomp, and you could plug into here and then run out separate left and right out there and blend through the thing. So there's no real need to go ahead and do all that wiring unless you just really wanted to make it look and function like a Rickenbacker does. But I love it. I'm really happy with how this turned out. And I did not have to spend over $3,000 to make it happen. I think all total, the nut and that was it, and then the tools, I mean, I didn't even have to buy those because I own them. I think I really spent about $10 in this project, aside from buying the guitar. So it's a well, if you have one of these, it can be done. You see it here, folks. Have a great day.
Cherry blossom